Welcome to the FNO InsureTech podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsureTech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Ooh, where in the world is FNO InsureTech?
That, for all you wondering out there, is my co-host, Lee Boyd, who's providing a wonderful introduction to today's episode of FNO InsureTech.
From around the globe.
From around the globe. Today's guest is coming to us from halfway around the world. We don't know that that's accurate, that it's actually halfway.
I don't think
we just know that it's a long way from us here in the southern tier of the United States. And that would be Oded Barak, co-founder and CEO of Five Sigma.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get to talk to him. Five Sigma is an interesting company, and they are really changing the way that claims are done, making claims smarter and faster and quicker. And they're this full platform to really better the claims atmosphere and environment. I'm very excited to talk to him.
You're kind of an operations guy on the claims side, so you kind of know claim systems, don't you?
Well, I'm a longtime adjuster. I've been in many claim systems, and yes, I would consider myself an operation guy.
And from somebody who's been around a bunch of different claim systems, what do you have to say about claim systems?
Well, I think that they're getting smarter, and I think that they still have a long way to go. I think that there's a lot of manual touches that can be taken out. Now, I can't tell you exactly what they are, but I bet if there were a whole bunch of really smart people sitting around, I bet that they could help us just determine what are those manual steps that could be taken away that maybe a machine could do for us.
Well, we are excited to hear about it and to hear from Oded, and also to, of course, hear our friend Lee Boyd singing the Carmen Sandiego song. So please take us through the transition here.
Where in the world is FNO InsureTech Israel?
Hey, everybody. We are here with our guest today, joining us from literally halfway around the world, or maybe more than that. I'm not exactly sure. We have Oded Barak with us, the CEO and co-founder of Five Sigma. Welcome to our podcast, Oded.
Thank you very much, guys. Lee, Allen, and Rob, thank you much for having me. Although half the other side of the world feels like we almost in the same room.
That's true.
Kind of sounds that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We were saying to Oded offline before we started how much we enjoy having people from Israel on the podcast, and that would include you, Oded. And so tell us a little bit about Five Sigma and what you guys do and what your products are.
So Five Sigma is really an end-to-end cloud-native and data-driven claims management platform directed for the property and casualty sector, not health, obviously, and not life. And we provide, a soup to nuts claims platform for insurance companies, MGAs, carriers, self-insured entities, or TPAs, anyone who actually needs and resolves claims. We provide either a full claim end-to-end or modules for companies that are not ready for a full replacement or bringing claims in-house but looking for enhancements, and so different modules that can help them obviously resolve and get an excellence claims operation under their hands. In terms of I think we started just before the call. I told you in the history of the company. The company was founded in 2017. We got offices both in Israel and the United States. Employees, operation and sales in the U.S. today, and R&D and product in Israel, in Tel Aviv. As we mentioned, we've got several customers already deployed. A very nifty pipeline, and our prime focus today is really the U.S. is going to be the sheer line of our effort. Although we now really looking to expand and hopefully going to have a few customers in the UK as well as in Israel.
You've had some big announcements. You have some big prominent customers here in the United States. Explain to us what it is that your product does for a P&C carrier.
when first of all, when you think about the entire the claims domain, and you guys been in the claims domain for a while, and I think the claims is really the reason I would call it insurance exists, right? This is actually the moment of truth in which the carrier delivered the promise to the policyholder, right? And although you look at Urban Dictionary definition of insurance, you'll read that it's the business of selling people promises to pay them later that are never fulfilled. And so perception, obviously, this becomes the front end when we're talking about customer experience. But I think beyond that, when you think about just the level of in terms of numbers, what does it really mean? About 70%, call it between 60 to 75%, probably most of the companies on average is the capital payout associated with claims between right the indemnity payment and LAE. When you think about this amazing number from a capital payout of a company, this number has become really dramatic when you look at the even last 4 years combined ratio in the industry surpassing 100 points, or the good companies are actually margin thin. So you think about both from a customer perspective standpoint and from the company's ability to control its cost on the other side. And a big portion of it, when you think about the LAE ratio, it's been around, and again, ups and downs, but on average for around 12%, more than a decade, with actually zero efficiency gain whatsoever, right? Claims as a domain went through one singular transformation, and that digitization, right? But what really was driving the claim resolution process, and I think this is part of the reason you see this zero efficiency gain for so long, is really the focus on managing adjuster to compliance, right? And then so now you move to a digitized form, you have more and more tools to actually manage the adjuster to just make sure they do what they need to do. And hence LAE is constant, right?
Right.
Nothing actually helped them to make better decision. And so we actually thought the right thing to approach tackle this issue is really by um, shifting from managing adjusters to actually enabling or empowering adjusters, providing them with the right tools, taking off what they don't need to do and the technology can actually do for them, leverage data to help them make better decisions, better recommendation throughout the claims lifecycle. And so allow them to just, think about the ability of an adjuster to have next to him or her a super adjuster, right? A super experienced adjuster to give them the right tips at the right time to the right person. So that's when we actually got really excited about the ability to actually close the gap, what I call the supply demand gap of what the industry needs and what is out there. And so this actually becomes much more important, right, in today's world when you think about different changing business modules like usage-based insurance, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
the need to integrate to IoT systems, right? One of our customers, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, Hippo is one of the big things they do is the IoT segment and how they actually
Right.
partner with their policyholders, intelligence and the usage of intelligence. So technology is the one key factor to actually bridge that gap, and the second is the ability to unlock the unbelievable amount of data that claims management has. Provide that data, obviously, structure it, build it, utilize it, create modules that actually help drive a much better claims resolution operation, both on an individual level of a claim and obviously in an aggregate in a portfolio. And I started and I'm going to end with intensify customer needs, right? The front end is really claims when it comes to that point. So we actually, when we started our journey, as I said, we initially thought, let's build the next generation TPA, on our proprietary technology. And I sound probably like a father who is super objective talking about his kids. But we got a pretty, I would say, really within the Israeli tech sphere, we got a really top-notch folks, and we got the domain experts on the claim side as well. Our CEO spent 30 years, in the world of claims processing as an adjuster at Progressive, became a claims executive in a variety of
Mm-hmm.
companies like Allstate and AAA and
Mm-hmm.
Chubb. And so the ability to create what I call the symbiotic relationship between the domain expertise on the claim side as well on the technology side, and call it translate various concepts from the concept level to a code line really really quickly. So for us it's super exciting.
Before we dig into the product a little bit more,
Yeah.
I have to ask, because this question keeps coming through my mind, how does a bunch of smart tech guys running around in Israel get concerned with these particular problems? How did Five Sigma come to be? You said that
To
you
life.
originally thought were thinking more in the TPA side, but how did you realize that what this product you were developing, this technology you were building out, was the right fit? Explain your origin story here.
This is a great question. I think the evolution of where we started and where we at actually ended up in this what I think is super exciting, and some will say super gray, but super exciting area. And I met my co-founders for Solomon and Michael Kircheli, which are two top techies. I would say those guys started their undergrad in mathematics and computer science at the age of 16.
Mm.
Wow.
They were
Okay.
kind of they're kind of a cherry picked to spend their call it military years in a very elite technology unit in the prime minister's office, basically solving real world problem. They had a problem that needed technology,
Mm-hmm.
a solution. They told them, guys, there was a bunch of teams, go figure it out. Now there was you can imagine, mission critical as well as very time sensitive, and that's what they did for almost 10 years together. And so when they actually left the service, I would say throughout this time they kind of missed mathematics and computer science, and they went out and did their degrees in advanced mathematics, applied mathematics, and machine learning, and all that kind of good stuff that we know. And when we met, we kind of, we can talk about my background, but we thought this synergy between, the business and strategy side of things to look for a solution for some real problems, and their ability to apply, tech thinking in a very, I would say, both macro and micro fashion. And so, what we looked for, I would call it a market or a vertical, which has, I would call it, five elements. The first one was needs to be large enough, obviously. The second was it needs to have, a real, what I called, growing supply demand gap. And this demand gap is because of, lack of technology usage for the tech and data can actually help close that gap. It needs to be a reach and data market. And lastly, we thought about two other elements that help. One is you need to impact the consumer in a way, either we go direct or B2B, 2C, if it really affects the consumer. And then we wanted to look at a space that most of the startup didn't actually already tackle it, at least in a massive way. And when we started, you got companies like maybe damage assessment, tractable companies, or fraud detection companies. When we looked at the landscape, which is intensifying, we can talk about it. But you saw various companies, the big incumbents, which are not cloud companies, right? They have robust features and
Right.
workflows, but very
Right.
not flexible on-prem. You got others that are, maybe the Socotra and Zbacor of the world that actually are cloud, but not focus on claim. And so we thought this segment needs a solely focus of best of breed and cloud native data driven solution. And so we actually, at the beginning, as I said, we thought about a TPA because we thought that's going to actually help us build a much better product. And what we realized through this journey, I would say, and we spent quite a lot of time actually looking at doing a market analysis. Um, and by the way, on those five different I would call features that I mentioned that drove us to where we are today, we looked at various industries before we started. Healthcare was one of them. There's a few of those, and everybody told us, you got to look at the insurance. Those guys, first of all, pay, and those guys have a real problem that needs to be solved today or yesterday.
Yes. Right.
And so we start talking to insurance guys and said, listen, this is an amazing place. Um, what we learned when we talked about a potential, TPA, actually next gen TPA, was that when it comes to call it a full file claim file management, most of the companies are actually using that kind of TPA service for catastrophes or whatnot. Um, but majority understand today, and I think part of it is the tsunami of InsureTech or distribution. most of the companies really looking to own the consumer or the policyholder, right? So they're kind of minimizing the usage of TPA, unless it's specialty, call it workers' comps and whatnot. They will use TPAs mainly for, point solution or damage assessment, appraising services and whatnot. The second thing we heard is companies looking at our product and saying, listen, we don't need a service. And I'm not intending actually to switch from a bad TPA to someone which is supposed to be better. I'm just going to bring claims in house. But I'll tell you what, I actually really love your platform. And I would like to buy the platform. And so, by the way, this is a point that our platform wasn't really productized yet, right? And so we kind of got back to the sandbox and thought to ourselves, we, at the end of the day, a technology company, majority of what we do is actually tech. And we can actually build and improve and utilize the data in a way that the system is going to improve itself all the time. And so that's where we are. So it took us a while. I got to say, this was at least a year of a journey trying to kind of understand where exactly we want to play. But I would call that's the evolution of where we're at.
Well, with that, in a second, I want to jump into exactly what Five Sigma is and paint me a picture of that. But first, I want to say, whenever you decide, okay, insurance, that's where I want to go. What do you do first? Is it you call people in the industry and just start asking them about problems? What is it you do whenever you decide you want to jump into the world of insurance?
I think, like you do with every point of, you decide that you want to explore, right before you actually make a final decision. That's what took us a while. So I think the first phase is really understanding that you need to, I call it humility, and come to this with a lot of kind of open ears, and just listen and talk to as many people as you can. And this, by the way, not only, and think about the entire, call it, cycle or value chain, right? From carriers, from underwriters to folks that actually manage the policy side, to claims, to reinsurance companies, CTOs, CIOs, chief claims officers, CEOs, the entire enchilada. So we at the beginning we started with carriers in Israel,
Hmm.
obviously. Early enough, we saw that we actually have the opportunity to talk to various Israeli InsureTech folks out there that went through the battlefield and have some experience and can guide us and talk about real problems. And then we actually looked for we at that point we kind of decided that within the sandbox, claim is where we want to focus. And then we actually did two things. One is try to find somebody who actually was an adjuster, grew up to become a chief claim officer,
Mm-hmm.
and then spend a lot of time. And I'm saying a lot of time because we spent, a month sitting with claims adjusters and just seeing how they do their work. Sitting side by side, looking at the problems, looking at the workflows, looking at deficiencies, talking to them about what really bothered them. And so once we start to understand and identify the issues, then we went back and say, on a whiteboard and say, okay, key issues, drivers, and now we start spitting some concepts, some ideas. I got to say that the fact that we brought in early enough in this process, folks that were actually chief claim officer and an adjuster, and understanding it from the inside out, you look bottoms up and tops down. You
Yeah.
understand it from all directions. That really help us, both not just understanding what's missing and what is the challenge that the adjuster needs some serious help with, but also what would help them adopt, right? What is the 20/80 rule? And so that's the method.
That is wonderful. I love hearing the stories about going from I did to actually a product, and so tell me a little bit about Five Sigma. We've talked about it and really what it's designed to do, but paint me a picture. Is this a user interface that a claims company is using to make decisions? Is this a engine that sits kind of behind the scenes? What exactly is this?
As I said, this is actually a full platform for claims management solution. So,
Okay.
we obviously, the first question will be, what are you guys that are looking to replace Guidewire or Doc Creeks or,
Right.
another platform? Primarily, this is what we are. We actually looking to provide a very different experience for an adjuster and the management for claim resolution. And so there's two elements to this, as I said. The first one, we really have a soup to nuts claims resolution platform, from first notice of loss to actually claim resolve, with a variety of workflows and features to help adjuster take a claims the entire life cycle. We obviously an API hub, and we're a cloud native solution. And in some cases, obviously, we're looking for the best of breed, point solution to integrate with, and that's what we do. But primarily, what the platform is doing is helping adjusters to resolve claims. This is the system that is replacing either what they have today, companies that want to modernize. And by the way, we can talk about the market, but when you look at something like 87 and a half or 88% of core systems today are still on-prem and legacy. 12 and a
Sure.
half percent, and you know the numbers, 12.5% cloud, by the way. This 12.5% cloud is not cloud native. And 99.9 of that 12.5% is what you call lift and shift, right? The old code hosted on the
Yes.
cloud, with all the issues of configurability and flexibility. And good luck getting the next version after God knows how much money you actually deployed. And obviously, this is a cloud native from a deployment standpoint. From times, we look at the 8 weeks average time cycle of going live with a customer. This is quite unique from an approach perspective. So that's one thing we do, provided we focus on those 88%, which are looking to modernize. Either they're homegrown or want to move to the cloud, and want to do it in a frictionless way as possible. The other folks that are playing in this domain is folks that actually have been using TPAs and decides to bring claims in house, and now they need a
Right.
system.
Right.
So those are other folks at companies that we're actually working with. We've got example of at least one customers, sure, that did the same thing, and we are actually now discussing the same process with others. And I would say that the other elements, and we talked about it, is the ability to companies sometimes say, listen, I want to modernize. And by the way, COVID, I think, helped
Yeah.
some of the companies, realize or expedite that need.
Expedite. Pushed.
Exactly, acceleration of this kind of realization. But some say, listen, I'm not ready yet, but what can you actually provide me, to enhance the operations? And then we go to really the discussion about what's your key pain points and what's your key strategic priorities. And based on that, we actually start, either deploying just an FNOL piece, or various features or various modules that we have on our product set. So that's what we do.
A company like Hippo or Kin that are also newer
Yeah.
cloud-based companies, the adoption for them is a piece of cake. They're not fighting through and slicing through all this legacy
Yeah.
tech stack.
So you classified it right. I mean, take and by the way, when you think about what really kind of drives a lot of this innovation, I think the fact that you got such an amazing number of distribution platforms out there. Those guys are, for me, a key. I call it a driver for several reasons, but I think shared vision is one of them. I think a lot of those companies promise,
Yeah.
think about what they promise to the policyholder in the underwriting side, right?
Right.
To onboard them, there's a simplicity, user friendly, and
Mm-hmm.
speed. And then
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time they use TPAs. Now, guess what happens in majority of the TPAs, right? You get this experience of speed, user friendly, and speed when you onboard. But then I need you when I submit a claim, and that's not quite the same experience. There's lack of consistency. So I think when they look at a cloud native and a system that is intuitive and help adjuster, just do things much faster and better, and we can talk about what that means. But all of a sudden, the customer experience is pretty much consistent with the onboarding experience. But for me, by the way, when we wanted to go live, and you can imagine, I mean, this industry, what we provide, as opposed to a point solution, right? If you talk just a fraud detection or damage assessment, this is a quite a heavy undertaking, right? It's the entire platform, which is such a core system. We're actually going to give a startup, yeah, go run my claims. Thank you. For me was, how do I create the fastest KPIs? How do I actually get a shorter sales cycle, a faster integration, to actually start running and getting some credibility in the market and credentials and results, right? So I think for
Yeah.
me that was the key challenge, and I think the folks like again the InsureTech's distribution platform out there really helped us.
So when you look at some of these legacy carriers, some of these 120-year-old carriers, some that
Yeah,
might even be on green screen still, do
green
you
screen.
even
Yeah.
bother with them? I mean, do you have a value proposition for those people as well who are buried deep?
Absolutely. I think so let's not get confused. My targeted market is those guys. I think, the InsureTech is a big market for us and we focus on this. I think again, as I said, shared vision and speed. But the pain point is even much more with the big guys, right? With the traditional guys. And one of our, customers is not 150 years old, but they've got systems, or I would say the core systems are like spread it across various systems, and it's like a spaghetti of solutions. And we need to integrate to those guys. And actually, it took us again weeks rather than many months. But I think the problem when you think about um, I would categorize it as following. We basically help insurers improve the core of their operating business, which is really the end-to-end claims operation. And primarily, we help them reduce what we call the claim leakage. And when you think about, claim, what is claim leakage? I mean, the definition of it, but I think it really the research talks about the fact that it's the overpayment or mistakenly overpayment for the entire core of claims management because of manual work, right? Paper pushing of adjusters, I would call redundancy, bad decision making of across the entire claim lifecycle, and the inability to leverage data. So we help, and by the way, claim leakage today is you know approximately analysis talks about approximately up to even 10% of the claims payout. It's a huge number. So number one is really helping them do that. And again, remember, we talked about what's the numbers of the industry. When you think about very thin margin business, and in many cases negative on a combined ratio, which is surpassing 100 points. The second piece we talked about the customer experience. This is actually and helping them provide a better policyholder experience. This is everybody's issue, even more so in the old guy in the more traditional carriers. We want to make obviously them more compliant and help them manage better. I think a huge blind spot of management. Go sit with a COO, even chief claim officer, and ask them what's happening now in your portfolio and your claims. And many of them going to start moving in an uncomfortable way because they don't know. I mean, they need to go to the reports and they're partial and they're not, comprehensive. And so the ability to, I call it to remove the blind spot from them or for them and give them better visibility of what's happening is a key thing. And as I said, I think what we really love in this space is the ability to start making claims data work for you as a company. And this is both, by the way, operationally. What's wrong with the operation? Where are the bottlenecks? What do you need to improve? Where are you missing? What are the flags? And strategically, imagine when you have a system, when you think about claims data, this is actually a reflection of your company's risk. And so when you start seeing emerging patterns on your portfolio, on your various populations, geography, or whatnot, you want to be able to funnel it really quickly, real time, to the underwriting folks, right? And so this is kind of closes the loop, and that's what really makes us super excited about it.
Well, that is very exciting. You answered my question about how we actually make it faster and more accurate by automating so many of those things. I'd like to ask you right now about your press release that I saw from Hippo. What is it you just announced with Hippo?
So Hippo is a partner, Five Sigma now. We actually, again, Hippo is a tech company, primarily an exceptional one. I got to say, we see many companies out there. The way goes all the way from the leadership and how the leadership applies philosophy down to execution. And with everything they do, they looked at claims and and thought about what can we do, what can we take. We have our platform, but what can we do? What can we utilize and leverage from other folks to enhance dramatically what you do to impact our again policyholder customer experience. And we talked about speed, proactiveness, right? Part of what they do is really even the
Mhm.
preventage element of it.
Mhm.
The first module was really the reserving one. So the ability to actually apply, machine learning algorithms to identify from first notice of loss, actually very smart classification of the severity or the severities of different damages that are happening in a
Mm-hmm.
claim, and trigger automatically many workflows in the background, from exposures to payments to whatnot. So for
Mm-hmm.
us, this is really, for them, it really kind of automates a lot of things that have been manual, a lot of decision making for an adjuster to understand what actually is going on here and what needs to be the next move. And so, really, part of their entire vision, we starting that with the reserving. We are discussing other modules as well, with them at this point, and hopefully soon enough there are going to be others. And I got to say, there's I would categorize it under the three pillars. And I think, this is what one is automation, right? So taking away the entire administrative drag from an adjuster. Obviously, this will reduce errors, will increase speed and accuracy, and I think most importantly, again, will give the adjuster more time to focus on better decision making. The second pillar, I think, is really, so we talked about automation. Second is recommendation, right? Adjusters, and we know it. I mean, you guys know it firsthand. Adjusters are under a lot of pressure. They need to make many decisions, and many adjusters, by the way, are relatively inexperienced. There's a lot of new folks coming in, and everybody has a need to have something like, as I said initially, like an expert adjuster giving them the tips throughout the claims journey. Various recommendation across the decision making life cycle, which brings us to the third pillar, and we talked about how do you do that, and that's the data. How do you gather the entire data throughout the claims life cycle to allow you to build those recommendation tools, um, you know, run those on proprietary algorithms, and to run different modules, and basically help adjuster make better decision in the company, basically to have a much better insights to what's going on under the hood.
How does a company like Hippo in this case just take the reserving piece? Aren't you a platform? Do they have an existing platform that you guys are integrating with? Is there an API between the two? How does it work?
Exactly right. And that's, you remember what I talked about, the full platform and modules to enhance.
Yes.
And that's with Hippo, it's a category of enhancement. So they have a platform. I mean, Hippo is a real technology company. They have an amazing technology team that focus on a variety of things, and they're
Mhm.
constantly improving the way they underwrite and policy admin. And so
Mhm.
they wrote it at the time. I think it was 2 years back when we actually just started thinking about what we want to do. And they actually went down and wrote themselves, a platform, a claim resolution platform. And at this point, among many things that they do, they look for solutions to enhance what they do. So we actually fully API integrated to them. And this is, by the way, from part of our business model today is to do that exactly. And it can be on any existing platform that you have. We can provide you and integrate with you with different modules side by side on top of what you have.
Oded, we work a lot with estimating platforms like Xactimate and Symbility. Does your product work with those?
So absolutely, I think, if you recall, one of the things that cloud native platform in nowadays is really kind of an API hub, the ability to integrate. So various damage assessment folks, again, like Xactimate or CCC or you name it. Yes, we integrate to those API wise, and it's part of the philosophy.
So let's talk about you for a second because you have an interesting story too. You were in the IDF and you had an interesting job. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you came from and how you ended up here.
Listen, my background, you mentioned, I think, like every Israeli, spent years in the IDF. I actually spent 8 years in the service, then spent a few more years in the Prime Minister's office. And then I actually had the opportunity to join a startup company with all this chaotic story of startup companies back in 2000. This was a startup in the world of digital imaging or pattern recognition back in the days. Then I ended up doing my MBA in the States. And after that, find myself working as an investment banker at Goldman in the technology, media, and telecom group in New York From that point, I actually went back to Israel and headed the Corp Dev M&A division for a publicly traded company called Amdocs. I think it's about 9 billion today. Software company in the OSS, BSS, CRM space.
Mm-hmm.
I headed this for 4 years, and then I found myself being a CFO of an international energy commodity company in the UK. You can imagine going to energy, heavy capex vertical, very, very different than tech.
Yes.
And so, and then I got back to Israel in 2016, and as I said, had the fortune to meet my co-founders, Michael and Dror. And if I need to summarize it, I kind of saw the world through few lenses. One is this really chaotic roller coaster of a tech startup company, and then moving to a more kind of publicly traded, quarter by quarter corporate America kind of companies.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I've decided to find my own company, take my own destiny in my hands, and build something exciting myself with the right partners, and embark on this wild journey.
Is it hard running a company in Israel, but implementing in the United States? That must present some unique challenges.
Yeah, yes, I think it's, today, I think back in the days, and again, 2000, I moved the first time I moved with the startup to the US. But, Israel is, as you can imagine, although we make an absurd amount of noise, it's really a a tiny little country. So no tech company market is Israel. So and most of the Israeli tech companies are focused on obviously EMEA and obviously Americas, North America
Mm-hmm.
primarily.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, insurance is not different, right? Insurance, a sheer line of it is maybe congested a little bit, but the opportunity is really there. English speaking is easy for Israelis, and I think today with the flights, I mean, pre-COVID, obviously, it's kind of straightforward. So, from a management standpoint, again, you need to be in the most critical path, which is your customers. So, I spent a lot of times. I've been just before the COVID, I spent an enormous amount of times, obviously, on planes between prospects and our customers.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is obviously to do a relocation and be full time in the U.S. Our COO is in the U.S., but we're gonna obviously be much more visible and physical situated there. Yeah.
Well, for those of you who are wondering why Lee isn't asking any questions, it's because speaking of technology, his failed in the middle of our podcast today. So you'll have to forgive us. But I do want to thank you for tolerating that and having to put up with me. But Lee's been feeding me questions on our messaging feed. So just tell us in closing, as you look out over the next 5 years, you're in such a unique little corner of the insurance world. What do you see for Five Sigma?
Prophecy is tough, I gotta say, but I'll tell you what we're aiming, right? And so this is what we're striving for. So we're really looking to become a leader in this category, providing a best-in-class, data-driven claim solution. Providing the best tools to enable adjusters, as I said, at every part of the claims management process. And from my perspective, is really operating globally, multi-language currencies, whatnot, deployed in multiple carriers in various tiers. For me, it's really moving up the higher tiers. And today we
Mm-hmm.
cover both personal and commercial lines. We want to expand on
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, of course, this is agnostic to the line. I mean, it's property as well as auto, correct?
Absolutely. So we today, both the clients are on, properties, home and auto. We have both personal line and commercial lines. We are now
Mm-hmm.
actually coming out and going to deploy. We won. We just announced, that we are the finalists in a global resort property management company that will include commercial and workers' compensation platform.
There you
So
go.
it's very, very, very deep and very, very wide from the robustness out of the box functionality we provide.
So if somebody in the U.S. market wants to reach out and contact you, let us know how they do that.
Obviously, first of all, through the website, anyone can reach out and ask for a demo and get in touch. And we've got a few of those. And then, we've got a sales person on the ground, sales executive that we can reach out. And obviously, if somebody hears us, can at this point reach out to me directly.
Terrific. Through fivesigmalabs.com.
Correct. Or myself, obviously, it's Oded at fivesigmalabs.com. And I think, folks are, and you can look at a website, but go to our customers and ask them, get reference, ask how to reach out, learn how we deploy. It's a big piece of this entire process is not just what you provide. Obviously, that's the key, but how do you deploy what you deploy? How do you make it as riskless and frictionless as possible, right? So we're happy to share this and happy to provide references to whoever is interested.
Okay, well, listen, Oded, we loved having you with us today. And we wish you all the luck, and we hope that you come back and visit with us again sometime soon.
Guys, it was a pleasure. I know Lee can hear us, so Rob, Lee, Alicia, Alan, really appreciate it and the opportunity to share the Five Sigma story.
Thanks. Well, Lee, that was interesting.
It was. Are we talking about the podcast or the fact that my microphone stopped working?
We are not talking about your microphone, no.
But you missed me, right?
That was a tragedy.
Well, thank you. I thought so too.
We had an FNO InsureTech podcast tragedy today.
We did. And you want to know something funny? That's not the first time that my microphone's gone out at the end of a podcast.
Well, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
The more interesting topic today was our friend Oded and his company. That is very interesting and very pertinent to our little world. And it's cool to hear that there's innovation going on the claims side.
Yeah, I love it. I love to listen to that. I love to hear the stories of how they came up with the ideas of starting these companies, right? And I picture these guys sitting around a room saying, "Where's our problem? We want to fix something," and they did. And it seems like they're really onto something. It took me just a little bit to really grasp it all, but I think that it seems like it's going to be a big change in the insurance space.
I agree. And we're really grateful to Oded for being with us today, and grateful to each and every one of you for listening, whether you're in the United States or anywhere around the world, including our friends in Israel, where we get downloads every day. Yeah. And so we thank you for listening, and thank you for being with us. And until next time.
Goodbye, everybody.